Okay. So, ma'am, when we talk about brands and storytelling,
Mhm.
uh, why is brand and storytelling so important?
I think we as humans we live for stories. Yeah, it our lives as a social being there. It's always been about storytelling. It is in a way very essential. It's productive. In a way, it also helps you retain a certain aspect of a brand or anything for that matter. Our lives would be incomplete without it. And when we talk about brands and the storytelling around the brands, so I think that humanizes the product. So if you
Right.
think that a product is flesh and bones, so the brand storytelling gives it a personality.
Hmm. So, ma'am, I wanted to ask if it is only the luxury brands that do storytelling, or do all the brands use storytelling?
Uh,
Um,
so not at all. It's not just the luxury brands. So brands, whatever nature, type, or form, or any kind of an industry, they're always conveying some kind of a story. So it's just like there's a quote that goes that tell me a fact, I'll learn. Tell me the truth, and I'll believe. And tell me a story, and it'll live in my heart forever. So storytelling is instrumental to give a brand an edge, a scope for conversation with the audience. So when brands are telling a story, they are kind of letting you take a peek inside its soul. It helps you traverse through the layers of its personality. So it just
right.
doesn't want you to buy the product or use a
Hmm.
service for the heck of it. It wants you to convey the potential that it has, its infinite potential. So, for example, Land Rover had done this very amazing 70th anniversary campaign with the Land of Land Rovers, wherein they had taken in interviews of people who have been driving the Land Rovers, and they have the model of 1950s in the terrain of Himalayas. So, and then of course there has been this amazing campaign. I'm sure that a lot of people would know that, which is Google's reunion campaign, wherein a granddaughter dials in grandfather's childhood best friend across the border and helps them reunite. And for that matter, there was another campaign done by Always, like a girl, uh, like a
Hmm.
girl of. So all these things, they have a positive kind of a connotation. It has a narrative that evokes that kind of a positivity. And in even if you don't think about it, you are also creating a very strong perception about the brand. So such storytelling campaigns, they definitely create awareness. They also create a cultural change, and then in a way it increases the brand's penetration. So through marketing, you can reinforce your brand's standpoint. So that is why you would have a narrative over and over again, or it will be whatever topical marketing is happening. For example, I think a lot of people know about Vinod, which has been one of the recent
Yes.
example. A lot of brands jumped in and the bandwagon, and they kind of joined the conversation. So people who joined in, or the brands who joined in this kind of a conversation, you have a certain perception, or you start building a perception that this brand caters to a certain kind of an audience. These brands are fun, they are trending, and they like to be a part of the conversation. So coming back, luxury brands have storytelling, but yes, of course, the others do as
Ma'am, I can understand about brands like Land Rover or Gucci and Armani. They have a storytelling.
well.
Um, they have a purpose for storytelling. But what
Mhm.
about brands like Amazon?
Mhm.
It's how do they use storytelling for um, in their marketing, or do
Uh,
they?
see, understand. Just like I said, that Vinod is one of the example wherein uh, the it is not that it's not just that you have to be coming from somewhere, or you have to be with a certain background only, then you have to reinforce certain standpoint for your own brand. So it has to be wherein you are invoking some kind of a positivity, some kind of a change, so that you feel that people are not just buying you for their products, they're also buying you for the kind of standpoint that you have in the world. So Black Lives Matter was one of the recent examples, There are a lot
Right.
of brands around the world, they contributed to the campaign. So if you think about it, so they're not selling products or services through that particular campaign. So Vinod being one of the examples. So they're not selling products through this. They are creating a
Right.
brand's perception, and in a way, they are penetrating into your minds. So they are creating a fraternity of sorts, and you feel that you're part of that particular fraternity if you are there teaching.
Ma'am, you mentioned that Land Rover had made a campaign about 70 years of Land Rover
Yes,
and
yes,
Land of Land Rovers.
yes,
Um,
yes.
do you think that luxury brands are using their history and heritage too much to emphasize their brand, or let's say in their marketing, and uh, when they have nothing new to offer, maybe?
Okay. So heritage gives brand a depth, of course, authenticity, of course, and with that, it kind of gives them a back to the credibility. But after that, the brand itself has to embark on the journey. So if we think about brands like Coco Chanel, so there is a certain value system from which the current creative directors, take inspiration from. So there is Jasmine, which has been one of key influential factors for Gabrielle Chanel. So the color black has been there, symbolism of lion has been there, and of course the Coco jacket. So these are heritage pieces which we see getting a makeover, or they have been presented the similar way in a classic manner. But these are just a starting point for a brand. Tiffany blue and expression of love, these kind of things, and spending 3 months' salary on buying the engagement ring. These are things that brands have had in the past, and they, of course, they reinforce it over and over again. But
Right.
would they succeed with just that? No, not at all. Quality and uniqueness for at least our generation, Y and Z, their shopping is based on that. So brands are omnipresent, they are digitally present, they are AI driven. Experiences are the offering. Who made the product? What kind of a process did the brand follow? How inclusive is the brand? What kind of a stance do they have on global issues? All these things also play a huge role. So if you see, DNG is one of the examples. It's a heritage brand. It has always been there. Very good Italian brand, very funky and very elegant at the same time. So they face a backlash for doing a very race-oriented marketing campaign. So the thing is, you can't just have a very lipstick syndrome kind of a brand that you are just there on the digital space for the heck of it. You need to be relevant. You need to be fast evolving. You need to be creating content and engaging people and creating that kind of a brand loyalty. In short, in today's world, you need to be fast evolving. You can have the heritage, of course, but the dynamics of what you bring to the table, those have definitely changed.
Right. Ma'am, you mentioned all the brands. All the brands that you mentioned were European. So I was wondering, why is luxury such a European phenomenon?
So I won't say luxury is a European phenomena. Of course, craftsmanship is a European phenomena to a very large extent. Apparel produced through the craftsmanship is considered European. So there is a reason behind it. It's called a provenance paradox that establishes the authenticity based on geography. If you talk about Swiss chocolates and Swiss watches, British tailoring, and Scotch whiskies. So all these have a provenance paradox. So if products, or even if there are other brands and they belong to the same area or same geography, even without thinking, you will think that they are good and they are better than the others. So the thing is that even without thinking, we denote a perception about a brand. And blindly, of course, if we have to pick something, we might go the way I have described over here, the provenance paradox. But now, with the global platform and everything being accessible, content readily available, you can also check the reputation of the brands and you can check reviews. A lot of brands from non-provenance centers have also become big. We have abnormalities, of course. We have in luxury wine segment called New World Region and Old World Region. So
Okay.
Old World region has always been confined to the Europe market, but now we see Napa Valley wines being very popular, for that matter, even Australia, New Zealand, getting the popularity as well. So,
Hmm.
and Japanese whiskey is there as well. So, all these abnormalities are there, and the provenance paradox is going to be there, of course. We guys are known for yoga and Ayurveda. So, without a doubt, if something is made in India and belongs to this category, and somebody outside India is consuming it, I'm pretty sure they will be convinced. So,
Right.
that paradox cannot be removed, of course. But like I said, that there are other people, there are other brands that are also existing in other parts of the world, and they're getting that change.
Right. And ma'am, what role do you think nostalgia plays into the strength of brands?
I think reassurance is the keyword here. Nostalgia, even if you uh, talk about that during such unprecedented times that we are living in, we have seen that brands are catering to this very wholesome approach. They are focusing on family ties and friends and time to think, refresh. So nostalgia is
Right.
definitely a cue for a lot of brands. Fila is one of the
Mm-hmm.
example. I think the logo, the very iconic logo, Levi's for that matter, has been using the same logo over and over again,
Right.
even for a small thing like a T-shirt, and they just kind of produce it and resell the same category. So in
Mm-hmm.
luxury, nostalgia is heritage, and I think we've covered how important that is. And rightly said, even in the watch space, if you say,
Yeah.
there are brands like Breitling has always been denoted with aircraft.
Right.
Panerai has been for water.
Scuba diving.
Reverso, yeah. So Reverso is a Polo watch. It's done by JLC.
Yeah, it
JJ.
reverses in so that it doesn't break.
Yeah. So what happens? It kind of flips. So while
Yeah,
you're playing polo, you flip the watch, and
I've seen it.
so the glass side is not there anymore. And in case some mallet hits you or you are in an accident, the watch is going to be safe. So nostalgia undoubtedly is a part of the brand personality, a story that brand likes to retell. Strength,
Mm-hmm.
yes, of course. Uh, these become a strong selling point for which you are ready to pay the goodwill, and
Right.
it is one of the attractions for a lot of people.
There was an article about Rolex that I was reading.
Mm-hmm.
So it said that basically why Rolex is so popular, because it used to be a military watch supplier, and
Mm-hmm.
and they were so reliable that old people now are buying into
Yes.
Rolex because it was so reliable in the field.
Yes. Yeah, for
Yeah.
that matter, there's another brand, it's Burberry. They were producing trench coats back in the day
Mm-hmm.
for the World War soldiers.
Yeah.
So now trench coat is the ultimate, uh, you can say, the standpoint for the brand Burberry. A lot of people,
Okay.
whenever they say the trench coat, that cream color trench coat comes into your mind, and then they have that
The plaid.
box pattern
Yeah.
in the inside. So so I think all these brands in nostalgia definitely plays a huge role. And for luxury brands, because most of them are heritage-oriented brands, family-owned, have been going on for years and years. So
Yeah.
nostalgia definitely plays an important role.
Um. So, ma'am, who is the ultimate decision maker in a luxury brand? The designer or the management? Uh,
I think without a doubt, the consumer. So
right.
the design, the functionality, experience, all have to be tailored to the current or the future needs. So there are times that you either are catering to the current need of the consumer, or you are in a way developing that need. In luxury,
Okay.
it is generally the later, but the amalgamation of need right now, of course, has to be there as well. But between the two, creative language, of course, is an extension of the designer, the creative director in most of the luxury apparel case. And he or she is given the freedom to soar in imagination, to create the unthinkable, to create something which is very unique. And of course, everybody else then joins in, puts their heads together to market it. So I still
Okay.
feel that brands can pivot to growth and profitability if they have a very strong value proposition. So they kind of miss that point in FMCG and other product ranges. Brands or product range are based on value proposition, and everything kind of comes around it.
Okay.
But
So
in
you
luxury
would-
brands, most of the times brands are kind of creating the dream to such an extent that they actually forget what exactly is the proposition or the value proposition, which is unique just to them. So I think that if value proposition is clear and sound, and because emotional benefit can be the face value, but the
Right.
rational benefit is important as well.
So you would still say the designer is more important than the marketing department in a luxury brand. Okay.
In the luxury brand, or you can say in particularly in the case of luxury apparels.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, ma'am, can you explain how the luxury brands typically design their retail experience? For example, when you walk into a luxury store, for example, Dior, what kind of experience can you expect to get?
So before we dive into this question, we need to understand that luxury buying is emotional. There is a term for it. We call it the hedonic value. So
Okay.
you associate yourself with the brand for the satisfaction it gives you. So you need to feel special. The brand experiential purchase should definitely validate that price.
Right.
When we talk about the luxury sales, most of them they happen online now, 80% of it, and 60% of that number happens to be the millennials. So last year, the total value of the luxury market was 308 billion USD. And but brands definitely they heavily focus on offline space because traditionally that has been the only interaction model that they have known, so much so that in 2010s I still remember that there were a lot of brands that were reluctant to get on the digital space. So experience offline is contributed by the personalized customer service that they are providing you. Even pre-COVID, I remember that there was a queue outside a Louis Vuitton store in Champs-Élysées in Paris. So you have to. So it is an art gallery. It's a presentation of an art. So in an offline space, brands are trying to tell you a story through the colors and prints and palettes. And they need to be consistent with the latest collection that they've had. Also, in the offline space, what plays a very important role is the olfactory experience. Scenting is very important. You would see even in the Starbucks store that you go, that it is going to smell the same wherever you go in the world. Gap is also one of the examples. Montclair is another. So a lot of brands spend on all these small little things that you are not really thinking of, or all these small little details that go unnoticed. So these processes are also very important when we talk about the offline space. And then of course these brands are creating these arenas. Pret lines are systematically placed where most of the consumers are unintentionally going to go. It's just like I think a lot of people over here who have joined us, they are going to relate with the UI UX of a website. So a certain button or a certain thing is placed at a certain manner at a certain point where you know that a lot of people are going to click, and then you have those heat maps wherein you see whether that has actually happened or not. So the offline, the retail space is also done in the similar fashion, wherein everything is prepared with data. It is prepared and then redone or repurposed in a manner wherein you know for a fact, okay, fine, people are going to this space more. People kind of turn left a little more than turning right when they enter. So accordingly, they place perfumes and belts and easy to access and buy kind of things, and then couture or made to measure kind of something which is like a personalized service that would be in a very secluded kind of an area that provides the premium clients the privacy that is required.
So, ma'am, you said that the online space is 80% of the business and the retail is 20. So, do you think if the retail were to disappear, the online would also be affected?
Yes, of course. It's like I said that it's an omni-channel approach, and luxury space is one such area wherein people would like to feel as a part of a community, and for that to happen you definitely need to have your own clubhouse, in a manner of speaking.
Mm-hmm.
And the offline space or the retail space is that clubhouse wherein you go and then you feel and that you're part of this brand. And a
Right.
lot of times what happens is that they have these diffusion lines. So you have diffusion lines in terms of you have perfumes or you have lower price commodities
Mm-hmm.
which are easier to buy. So once you have
Right.
something of a lower value but it is of the same brand, you feel okay fine now that you've entered that particular fraternity of DNG or of Hermes or for Chanel. Now you would want to have something which is better.
Okay. So, ma'am, what has been your experience working with luxury brands? Can you share a fun story with us?
Okay, so enriching, of course, I think that kind of defines my experience to a great extent. Before indulging myself in this industry, I wouldn't have gone into the depth about brand's true nature or the craftsmanship or the experience creation. Stories about brands is definitely, I think, my favorite part. Reading, knowing great brand stories, living in them and experiencing them is the greatest pleasure. To the depth brand can go just to serve a customer, it's extraordinary sometimes. And of
Right.
course, detail is necessary. So I
Mm-hmm.
remember one of my luxury retail professor telling me that he's diabetic, and once he had asked a hotel to remove chocolates from the mini fridge after which wherever he went around the world and stayed at the same hotel brand, there were never any chocolates in the mini fridge. So
Wow.
it's a very small thing. Uh, uh, a lot of brands would even ignore that for as a matter of fact. But these small little things, these make you feel more valuable as a customer, and that is why
Hmm.
people like to go back or come back to you again.
Right. So, ma'am, which brands do you think are on the cutting edge of branding and storytelling?
See, creating a dream and having an exclusivity and providing a value proposition, these are some of the key factors that lead to, you can say, a brand being on the cutting edge of branding and storytelling. In today's time, I think an omni-channel approach, versatility, would be other factors that would contribute to judging brands. So I have been following Gucci a lot recently.
Mm-hmm.
Their campaigns are diverse, very inclusive as a brand,
Right.
and they are indulging themselves in topical marketing. It uses instantly these kind of things. During COVID, they were one of the first brands to start at home photo shoots. So
Hmm.
I think they are doing great in a lot of areas, and of course they're the fastest growing luxury brand right now, and I'm sure they deserve everything.
Right. Ma'am, I was wondering one thing that
Hmm.
fashion goes in and out so fast. So, who
Mhm.
decides what trend it's going to be this summer or the next summer?
Okay, so a lot of factors actually, and all are developed through data. So we call
Okay.
that trend forecasting. So you might think that why is yellow in this season or why a certain kind of a pattern is in this season. So
Yeah.
themes, styles, fabrics, what people are liking or purchasing, the
Yep.
kind of lifestyles they are having, the kind of demographics they are from, the kind of
Mm-hmm.
topical changes that are happening. Then global climate sustainability, for example, these have been the recent things that a lot of brands are taking inspiration from, and then they're doing whatever that they are launching in extension or in context to this. So data plays an important role in devising what kind of a trend a brand is going to have.
Hmm. Okay. So, ma'am, I was also wondering what allows some brands to be so expensive.
Okay, so I there's a very famous quote by Coco Chanel: "The first things in life are free, and second best are very expensive." So creating that kind of an experience, the true luxury experience with meticulous eye to detail. That of course is expensive, comes at a cost. They're charging for that expression, for you to become part of their community and having no regrets.
Right. Ma'am, but some purses can cost, some bags can cost upwards of $10,000, and as engineers, we don't understand that. So, can you break down the cost to cost
So
things?
yeah, so like I said, that most of the things they are made by hand, they're made to measure, they're made on order. So if we talk about a bag, one of the most prominent bags in the world has been the Birkin bag. I think a lot of people know that as bag making from Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara movie. So
Okay.
that is one of the bags that go upward of $10,000, and you have to be in a queue for that, a waiting list.
Wow.
So these kind of brands are, but these kind of bags are made by hand. There are a lot of people who are involved in each and every aspect of it. These people, their skills, they come at a more expensive cost than the others, because it's on a decline. So if you would say in comparison, would that bag be more expensive in 1900s or 1800s? No, not at all, because they were more readily available craftsmen back in those days who are producing this. But now that we don't have that kind of craftsmen anymore, and they come at a certain cost, and the kind of detail that goes into it, you would not believe each and everything that is put on that particular bag is by hand. There's not even a single thing that is done by a machine. So every stitch, the leather, the way that it is, the process that it follows of acquiring and then going back to the customer, seeing whether that particular person is liking what is being done, and then it going back again and then doing the changes. All these things, of course, that kind of adds in the expense. And also, you have to see that they are not working on volumes. So even if it is a store which has like it's a big store and it is in a very plush market, it would just have what 100 200 SKUs, and when you put in the rent and you put in everything else, account for the people who are working, and at the end of the day they're just selling like one product or two products a day, or like 5 or 40 products a month. And you compare that with an FMCG product which is like selling like anything. So there's no comparison. The profit margins are not very high if you think about it. These brands, they have a perception that they must be doing wonderful, but I think apart from the top 50, a lot of brands are even at breaking. So it's just the top 50 that must be doing a profitability, but it takes them years to get to that level.
Wow. So, ma'am, one article I read about Cartier and some other, I think Tiffany, it read that they destroyed product worth millions just so that it doesn't have to be discounted. So, ma'am, what was the reasoning behind that? Why should a product not go on discount when it's not needed?
I think there's nothing else to say than the fact that it is outrageous. It is not picking interest anymore. It might work as a good PR stunt or a good media thing back in the day, but now people being so positive about the climate and the way everything is functioning about sustainability, it is not picking interest anymore, and I think brands should change ways if they are still doing it.
Right. Yeah, I think it's outrageous. Ma'am, can you do you think a brand's identity or core values can hinder its growth into other segments?
So on the contrary, I think it opens up a revenue stream. Quite popular in the 90s and 2010s. The one that the one example that I've already talked about is the diffusion lines. So what happens is that you have a lower pricing range for products under a different collection name, but it is under the same brand. So Lauren by Ralph Lauren was one of those brands. Then Donna Karan by DKNY, MCQ for Alexander McQueen, and Simply Vera for Vera Wang. So all these, what happens is that it kind of creates a halo effect. So
Okay.
I've already explained that you have an ownership of a product, and then you kind of look up to the brand that, okay, fine, now I want something which is more expensive, something from the main range. So
Okay.
brands with having these diffusion lines, they recruit you young, and this happens with cosmetics also, perfumes and accessories.
Right.
But now these diffusion lines, they are that concept also has been diffused to a great extent, because there's a lot of workload with diffusion lines. You need to have different kind of voices, brand voice,
Right.
and then you have different kind of segmentation. Then you have different lineups. You have to do different kind of fashion shows. You need to have different retail outlets in different markets, and then digital presence also. So a lot of brands have absorbed them back to their main lines, and now they're selling it under the same brand. You have Gucci T-shirt being very cheap in comparison to the kind of clothing that they otherwise do in couture or brand. So now the focus that the brands are doing, so as to have a more robust brand presence, and they are able to cater to wider audiences through collaborations. H&M is one of the example. I think Supreme is one of the ultimate collaboration oriented brand, and collaborations across industries also happen. So it kind of picks up the public interest. Media is also very interested in writing about these kind of things, because there are two people coming together. It could be even a very small thing like a clothing brand doing the bottling for a whiskey brand, or an Apple Watch brand. The strap is done by Hermes. That range is also done. So these kind of small little things, brands are able to get in the revenue through the lower segment products.
Right. Ma'am, brands like Supreme, like you mentioned, have dominated the market not by making a lot of money and not by making a lot of a lot of sales. They don't sell that much, but they are still widely popular, and they. It seems to me that they are more focused on the resale market for some reason. They hold their product, and what do you think are the similarities between brands like Supreme and Hermes? I'm sorry if I butchered it.
No, that's how you pronounce it. So,
Okay.
they have weird pronunciation, I must agree, but then you need to value the way that they are pronouncing it. So, when I think about these brands, so when you say Hermes, I think horses, I think leather, the orange box, which is very prominent, the scarves and innovation and elegance that is there with Hermes, and then of course the Birkin bag. When you say Supreme, I would say it's poles apart. It has always been a skateboard brand. It just has 9 stores, but it is very young, it is very appealing, and it is very red. So when you say similarities, I would say aloofness is one of the similarities between the two, exclusivity and timelessness. But most importantly, it's rarity. So Birkin, just I told you that it's a highly endorsed luxury product, and you have to wait a line for it. So even so, for Supreme, you just have 9 stores, and you have to queue up on a Thursday, and then you get into that line, and then you just have only a limited amount of products that they are selling, and then after that they are stopped. So limited range. Yes.
Why would Supreme want to do that? I mean, should they not focus on selling more?
So that is the kind of brand voice that they would like to have. They would want to have or focus on the rarity of the product, and with that they are creating the the selling market there is right now. So a lot of brands do that just to thrust a certain amount of perception about their brand in the market. So I think it is something very personal to the brand, the way that they would want to govern themselves. A lot of brands focus on celebrity endorsements or influencer marketing, but there are brands who still don't do that. There are brands I know of that are there in remote villages of Italy, and it's like a father-son generational kind of a brand that has been going on. They have a A-list clientele. They would have people flying in just to get to that particular village and get their suits and pants made. and they would not really want to multiply. They would not get into a franchising model or anything of sorts wherein they can actually get a lot of revenue, because that is the kind of model that they believe in. They believe that they would want to have it that way, wherein they have that kind of perception about the brand. They would want to focus on the craftsmanship bit, and that also in a way creates a fraternity kind of an atmosphere for certain brands.
Right. And ma'am, one thing I was reading about Supreme is that when Supreme collabs with a brand, it brings attention to the brand that it's collabing with. For example, it might not sell millions of pairs of shoes, but it's bringing that much attention to the rest of the lineup of the brand it's collaborating with. For example,
Yeah.
it does a collaboration with a shoe brand, for example, Nike. On an Air Force One. So people go on their website and they look at, okay, now Nike is cool. So
that's good in a way. I think for the other brands that they are associating themselves with Supreme, and in a way they are taking advantage of that.
Yeah, so Supreme gets paid way more than they sell for collaborating.
I don't know whether they are doing that, but I think they should definitely charge them in case they aren't. So a lot of brands, for that matter, I think Nike, of course, have been there. A lot of brands, Louis Vuitton, a lot of people did not even know that they started off as a trunks company. They used to make trunks for people, suitcases for people to carry around back in the day.
With a flat top, right? So that they can be stacked.
Yeah, so now a lot of people have got to know that bit about Louis Vuitton, that it is not just a brown bag that girls carry, but it is actually about trunks. So it's good that brands like Nike and other brands have profited from this kind of collaboration and everything. So you think from your standpoint, you being a close observer of Supreme, that Supreme has given weightage to Nike, but Nike would also have a certain kind of loyal fans, and in a way, they are also bringing something on the table. So just like Supreme is bringing something on the table through the collaboration, so is Nike.
So, ma'am, the contrast between the brands is very interesting. But how badly do you think the luxury fashion industry hates the non-sustainable fast fashion brands? I mean, their motto and...
I think quite a lot. So you see, fast fashion now repositions itself quite loudly that it is sustainable. It has those conscious lines. It has those discountings that are happening if you get them a bag of old clothes. Then they're doing recycled jeans. But you see, 60%, like I said, of the people who are buying the luxury products, they are millennials. And sustainability is not anymore a relevant topic. It is something which is required. And so when we talk about sustainability, fast fashion does not follow that at all. You've seen a lot of backlash for H&M or for Zara, for that matter, how exactly the lower down labor is facing problems in Bangladesh, the kind of atrocities and the kind of systems they have, or the kind of factories that they are working with. So I think that is one reason that brands don't like, or anybody for that matter does not like fast fashion, because they are producing it at a pace that nobody considers to be normal. And second would be IPR, intellectual property rights, design patents or copyrights. They are keystone for any industry. I think for engineering as well. Whatever that you're producing, you get it copyrighted or you get the process patented. So all these are very important, but in terms of luxury or in terms of apparel specifically, that is non-existent. So that kind of puts these brands little in a fix, because what happens is that you have a runway show and you put everything on the runway, that what kind of a thing you are launching as a brand, for example, Coco Chanel or a Burberry or whatever. And Zara or H&M, what they are going to do is that before you put that range on your floors, they'll be sold out selling those designs. It is like, it is that fast. So of course that hate bit is there, but people who are there, their audience, they're always going to be there. So like I said, 308 billion USD, it is there.
Wow. Okay, so you brought up ramp walks and fashion shows. Why do ramp walks and fashion shows have clothes that nobody would actually wear?
So you have to see it in a way that it is actually an artistic journey of the artist, and it needs to be enjoyed in the same fashion. So
Okay.
the artist is kind of showing, for example, a model wearing feathers or some kind of an artistic cut or some kind of a pattern or a certain drape is in fact a revelation for a future design. So something that
Okay.
will be followed up in a few years. It's a futuristic essence. But other than that, there are brands. There is Michael Kors or Ralph Lauren or a lot of brands for that matter. Even if they are doing an artistic version, 1/3 of it would be an artistic uh, rendition, but other 2/3 of it would be something that you can wear, and it will be there on the floors and you can buy it.
Okay. That was my last question. Does the audience have questions for ma'am? Um, if you have any questions, you can put them in the chats. Otherwise, I'll put her LinkedIn and Instagram in the WhatsApp groups, and you can contact her.
Yes, sure, please.
Yeah.
So I'm open to whatever questions you have, even if you think that you want to do a shift of industry or anything. I'm
Yeah.
here to help you out. And
So
even if you think that engineering has nothing to do with the luxury industry, there are so many things in the luxury space, because today we've just covered mostly about apparel industry in the luxury space, but then there are cars, there are watches, there are wine, there are alcohol, there is
Right.
art. So all these things are there as well when we talk about the luxury industry. And in the current times, I believe with technology being the standpoint for a lot of brands, blockchain, AI, VR and AR experiences, brands are heavily investing on these areas. So I believe that that could be one of the starting factors for you in case you are considering an industry of sorts like luxury. So if you would want to stick with things that you're doing at the moment, but still would want to have a taste of how exactly the industry functions, so that is a starting point for you. But otherwise, if you would like to make a switch, maybe become a brand advisor or do something creative, then Tanishq here can provide you with my email address and you can shoot me a question.
Yeah. We have a question. Akansha, you can turn on your mic.
Hey, hi Shivani, great session.
Thank you.
This is with regards to when you were talking about the broken back specifically, right?
Yes.
So I had a question because since we're also talking about the sustainable fashion, how does it appeal to the brand or like even to a target audience or people in general who buy these broken bags? Because they are not animal friendly. I mean, they have received a lot of backlash for animal cruelty because it's made from crocodile skin. And celebrities like Kylie Jenner, they have the most expensive ones. So how do they actually take it? Do they not really care about these things? And how is the market for these broken bags so big and so expensive, and people actually end up buying them?
So you have to see it. So they have always been doing the crocodile leather, but I think quite recently they have changed. Brands who've been using furs or they've been using some kind of an animal leather, they have discontinued it and they're trying to make something which is more sustainable but kind of feels the same way.
Yeah.
Okay, Vaibhav has a question.
Yes, I think she wanted to. She had a
Okay.
question.
No follow-ups. I was just thanking you.
Okay, thank you.
Right,
Vaibhav.
right. Can I ask the question?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Hi, Shivani. How? That is not the question. I just received my question.
I'm
So
good.
right. So I have this initiative, and we were planning to change the company's positioning, and I just wanted to know more about what is the cost of taking such decisions, because we already have a, s- some sort of an audience built up,
Okay.
and what is the right time of taking this decision, and eventually it is going to be difficult as we go on, but what are the factors that I can consider before taking a similar decision? I want to ask.
Okay, for positioning, you mean?
Right. So changing the brand identity altogether,
Okay,
changing.
okay. So repositioning the brand, kind of
Yes. Yes.
rehauling the brand.
Yes.
I would say, I think I've also mentioned in some of the questions that brand value proposition is the keystone for any kind of brand. So even if you're repositioning yourself, you, for example, you're a premium brand and now you would want to cater to a different audience, or you would want to have some more people from another set of segmentation or some other audience that you were not dealing with before. Uh, the thing is that what kind of a proposition are you offering to them? That needs to be the key point, and the customers that you're going to deal with, what kind of things do they like? You need to position any kind of brand or any kind of product around them. So once you have that, I think everything kind of would follow in terms of the branding, or in terms of the colors, fonts, logos, the kind of website or the kind of ads or whatever that you're doing. After that is completely a follow up on the value proposition. So if your value proposition is strong, and in a way it is going to be beneficial for the repositioning target audience that you're doing, then I think everything else can be taken, can take a later step after that. I hope that kind of answers it. But I can go in detail about that as well. If you have like a more specific kind of a brand in mind, and if you can tell about that a little in detail, maybe I'll be able to suggest you a little better.
I'd like to follow up, but
Yes, please.
I'll do that individually.
Please.
Thanks a lot for the answer.
Okay, do we have more questions? I think not. Okay.
I have one if I can go again.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay, so this is more on the creative side. So I don't know if you've actually noticed it, but when you go on Zara's online app, we see that the models who are actually posing, it can come off as a little weird. So is this something related to, related on the creative side of what the brand wants to portray, or like what is up with that in general?
So you can notice that even during the box, that there are times when models are wearing a lamp, or there is a splash of color coming from the air, and then it takes the shape of a skirt. So all these kind of things, like I said, that luxury or anything for that matter, for apparel industry, these people who are producing it, they are actually artists. So they would want everything to be done a certain way. Even when we do shoots, there is actually a creative expression that we would want to convey. So when they are doing or modeling or posing a certain way, they are kind of blending in with what kind of a theme they have in mind.
Right. Ma'am, we have a question in the chats as well
Okay.
from Astitwa.
Okay. So can you read that out for me?
Okay.
1 second. I'll just.
Should I read it?
Yes, please.
Astitwa says, "Hi, I'm a part of eCell NSUT. In a discourse yesterday on one of our groups, I was torn between."
I'm so sorry. I think your voice is breaking, Tanishq.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you
Yes,
hear
please.
me
Go
now?
ahead. Yeah. Go ahead.
Astitwa asks, "Hi, I am a part of eCell NSUT. In a discourse yesterday on one of our groups, I was torn between whether one should use a simple verbatim or a developed vocabulary while writing, or increasing appeal or reach, for the lack of a better word, of a brand or a society like ours."
So I think the simpler it is better. But yes, of course, you should also consider that the people who are going to read it, if you think that they are being, so if we call that tone of voice. So you have a different kind of a tone of voice for whatever kind of brand that you are representing. So you would see that there is a tone of voice in Vogue, and there is a different tone of voice in, for example, a GQ. So these brands are from the same main publication, which is Condé Nast, and so Vogue would be more friendly. It will be more the kind of words that would be used would be more stylish and everything. But on the other hand, you would see that GQ, the kind of words that they would use would be more conversational. They would have questions in the middle, and then they would have some kind of thing put in wherein there is a gig, or there's some kind of a laughter factor. So all these completely depends to the kind of clientele that they're dealing with. So everything kind of boils down to the people that you are reaching out to. You need to create, just like I had explained in UI UX, you have a process called creating persona. So when you are creating a persona of the people who are going to be your target audience, you see that what is something that they are going to connect with. So keeping that in mind is how you develop your website or whatever that you are planning at.
Do we have more questions? Okay, I'm seeing none. So I would like to conclude the session. Thank you, ma'am,
Thank
for
you so much
joining
for having
us.
me over.
Yes, the information you gave us was great.
I hope
So,
so.
yep. Thank you.
Okay,
Have a good
thanks so
evening.
much. You too.